If you are interested in starting a nonprofit, it's really not that hard. And if you need an idea, I'll give you one of my ideas. Whatever you do, if you're helping a certain type of person or a certain type of community, you better go on the ground and figure out what they actually need. Don't try to decide for them at all. Here's an example. So a church, you know how like Jesus fed the 5,000 with fish or whatever? So they thought that was like a genius idea. They're going to start fish farms in like Africa, right? They did this. They actually tried to do this. And the people there said, we don't want fish. We want chicken farms. And they said, no, you're getting fish. How well do you think that worked out? Not very well. The people not only didn't respect the fish farms, but they didn't respect the people who put the fish farms in there. They wanted chicken farms. So don't try to decide what people need or want at all. Ask them what they need and want. Like, sure, I may have ideas and you may have an idea, but that doesn't mean that you know for a fact. So you better verify that, because you will end up surprised, because there were things that I changed once I got on the ground. So when I started Blessed Children, I obviously based it off of the Haitians that I knew, a lot who were still living in Haiti at the time. Some still are. And so I had a pretty good idea that this is what would be needed and wanted. But that was not solidified, right? So I had a lawyer contact who was Haitian, and it was his brother. It might have been cousin, but I'm pretty sure it was his brother, was a mayor of. So Charlie and I went down there in 2017, and we drove from Port-au-Prince, which is a very, very long drive. And we basically met at like the city hall building, right? And the mayor's office was just all the way at the top. It was just a desk. And my translators were just kind of looking at their phones. And it was Charlie and I presented the idea, and I showed them like my crappy little architecture thing. And he's looking very stern. I was like, I don't know what he's thinking. He goes, how quickly can this be done? So I've got the mayor of, and we take the whole posse, right? We drive to all the different sections of. So basically it's divvied up. And they have what are called Kazi men that are over these sections. So I think there was like 4 districts, and there's a Kazi man over all of them. And it's basically like, I don't know what the equivalent position would be here, but they were governing that area under the mayor. And we brought these ideas to each Kazi man, and we said, would this work for the people right here? Do you think this would work? And most of the ideas, they were like, yes. And they were like, that one, maybe, I don't know. And they said, can you add this and that? So that's how things changed and became solidify. It was like, yeah. So we went over to all these Kazi men, and we talked to them, and we figured out what exactly do you want. And we made sure that it was what would meet the needs of the community. So as it was ending, it was near the end of the day, and they said, we've got like a community football game, like soccer. Like, will you come join us? So we did, of course. And I was talking to the mayor, and he said, like, I think these two plots of land would be good for y'all, and it's right next to the the electricity poles and everything, so you won't be too remote, this and that. And he said, you want to build here? I was like, are you serious? He said, yes, I'm serious. Will this actually happen? I was like, yes, but obviously things out of my control now. If you look at the news in Haiti, I can't do it right now. So I hope to still be able to do it one day, because I do have a heart for them. But he said, do you want them? I said, yes. And we shook hands. And I was just given 2 plots of land in Haiti, which to an American NGO who's doing work down there, let me tell you, people were jealous. On top of that, their cousin was over all of the ports in Haiti, because the person who I connected with in the U.S., he just happened to be someone whose family was mostly in Haitian government, right? That's a win. That's lucky. So their brother or their cousin or whatever was over all the ports. So a lot of times NGOs have a hard time getting they send things down to Haiti, and then they can't get their stuff out of the port unless they pay like $5,000 or whatever. They basically like keep it hostage. That was not going to be an issue with me. I was not going to have to pay any port fees. It was just whatever I needed was going to be accepted and brought to where I need. Not only that, but they were going to bring the stuff. They were going to help coordinate trucks to bring these shipping containers to Port Salut. They were going to provide that for me. Here's the thing. A lot of people start orphanages when they're NGOs. I know people with orphanages in Haiti. They didn't appreciate that, the Haitian government. So here I am on the other side, and all this time I'm hearing NGOs saying they're trying to close down our orphanage. And actually, it was yet another cousin of this guy. Yeah, I guess he had a lot of cousins. Really, I made the best connection. That was a God thing that I reached out to him. But his cousin was in charge of trying to shut down all of the international NGO orphanages. Like the people who I knew who had started one. Why, you might ask? Because they are not orphans. And you think, oh, maybe they didn't know that? The people I know knew full well that these children were not orphans. And I'll tell you a story that came directly from the horse's mouth of someone who I know who had an NGO nonprofit in Haiti. So it's the same trip, and I visit this person with this orphanage in Haiti. And if you're watching this, you might very well know this person. And they said, I want you to meet my new baby. So, I mean, it's a cute baby. And I was like, what's his story? Like, whatever. And he was like, well, his mother couldn't take care of him because she's already got 5 children. So I decided to take him, and she's working here for me. Not only that, but she would not let this woman go home to her family. She required that this woman sleep there and was basically constantly working. And she only gave her $25 a week. And I promise you that's not enough, because I was sitting around the table with people who we know, Haitians, saying that, hey, that's not enough. And she's sitting here, the employee, just looking down sad because, yeah, it's not enough, but it's the best she can get. So they're like, you got to pay her more. You got to pay her a living wage. And can she go home to her family? And all of this was no. It was, I don't know if she finally agreed, but she was very. So there's like a lot of orphanages down there. And remember how I said it's really important that the person who's in charge be on the ground? None of these people were on the ground. Like, they'd visit their orphanage once in a blue moon, but they lived here in America. And they would just put a Haitian in charge who they trusted. And guess what? A lot of these times they were traffickers. A lot of these orphanages down in Haiti are not orphanages, and these children are not orphans. They're being trafficked. Because there is a huge child slavery problem there. There's 500,000 Restavix, which is a child slave. And so actually, all these orphanages that we have been supporting as a church were actually just trafficking children. And when you visit, they seem like they're dressed, clothed well, and they're being fed, and they're being taken care of, and it seems like the people in charge care. But there was a girl, Megan Boudreau, and she saw that happening on these little white savior mission trips, and then she went back later because she was there alone. It was all a friend. That is by far the craziest book I have ever read, and it was given to me by another woman who was in Leogon, if y'all remember that. She said, hey, I want you to read this book. So I read it. I read the whole thing. I don't stop reading until I close the book. I had gotten up at like 5 a.m. and by the time I was done, it was like mid-afternoon. And the other shoe had dropped. And I go out to the balcony of this orphanage I was in. And this woman who owned the orphanage was doing some work on the kitchen there. And I looked down. There's a child slave right there. I was like, it was always here. How did I not see this? So when I talk about toxic charity, that's what I mean. I mean, a lot of these churches' dollars are going to the support of child slavery, are supporting traffickers, are not supporting anything which they think it is supporting. It's really unfortunate that the people who claim to help don't actually try to figure out what will help. Because orphanages were not the solution. You may have even thought, well, what about after the earthquake? Because I went to Haiti. I was there pre-earthquake and post-earthquake, and this orphanage existed pre and post. Well, guess what? No. Actually, still no. A lot of those kids have parents, at least one living parent. And so that kind of changes your mind, right? Now that you're kind of thinking, oh, it's terrible that they're closing down orphanages. Why don't they just accept whatever help they can get? And now you're realizing, how quickly can we shut down these orphanages? Honestly, suddenly I see things from their side. They're not trying to be a stumbling block or trying to prevent good things from happening. They're trying to prevent bad things from happening that we, as a country, mostly have enabled to happen. Along that same vein, I don't recommend helping out a child with their tuition. I don't recommend doing that unless you're handing that money to the child, because I had a sponsor child. I adopted her when she was like 3 years old, so 2008. And I had been sending money down through people I trusted, but they weren't making sure that not only that money was going to her, but it was going to someone who was not trafficking children. So obviously she was in something like that. But they sent me a progress report on her one time with her picture and everything. And I'm like, this is not her. And they're like, what do you mean? I messaged them, and it was a nonprofit out of like New Hampshire, I think. I was like, this is not my sponsor child. Who is this? And they never responded, because I took them to task, and I said, I was not nice about it. I said, I can't even believe this is happening. I really just called them out because I was livid. So I finally got to meet up with her. I think it was like 2015, because I couldn't see her in 2017. One of the years, though, I saw her. Yeah, it was, I think 2015 was the last time I saw her in person. And I find out that she's never seen any of my money come in. And she had been wondering where it was going to come from, because I told her face to face that I would be providing care. Well, she was 3 years old, right? But her father was there, and I told him that. And they were wondering what happened with that. I thought you were going to do all of this. And I said, you haven't seen any of the money I sent down? And they said, no. So this whole time, I had been giving money to someone who was trafficking children. That was one of the worst days of my life, I want to be honest with you. Because not only did I give money to someone who was disgustingly corrupt, but I let down someone in the most significant of ways, the worst way. She never had an education. Okay, so let's tie everything together. Your board of directors really matters. The way you do things really matters. Your nonprofit goal really matters. Your governance matters the most, clearly. And it matters that you know what is going on with your nonprofit. And it also really matters that you figure out what the people who you're trying to help really want and need, and let them be the ones to tell you. Don't try to decide, because people who tried to decide created orphanages. And how did that help? So people talk about toxic charity, and they say, oh, well, any charity is good charity. Wrong. Some charity is harmful. A lot of charity is harmful. And by the way, when y'all send down all those like stuffed animals and stuff, you want to know what? They just end up in a freaking pile and they rot. Why? Because they don't have any way to get the stuff out. So you need to think about these things. Yes, you need to think about where your charity is going to, and you need to make sure you're giving money to right people as well.